Hi, I'm Steffanie Rivers, and I want justice. The police officers involved showed reckless disregard.
Hi, and welcome to the video version of my journal. I'm Steffanie Rivers. Come on in, kings and queens. Welcome to the conversation. You're watching me on several platforms. I'm multicasting on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So thanks for joining us. I got my little chill music. I try to relax you before I hype you up. So welcome to the show. If you are new to the show, I know you're going to hear something that you will like, so that you can share it and subscribe, so that when I post new videos, you will be the first to know. Now, have you ever had someone to entice you into doing something by telling you that there was going to be a big payday at the end of the road? And then you found out that they lied, and all they really wanted you to do was to do what they wanted you to do, but they never had any intention of following through on their end. Well, it turns out that Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott are some of those kinds of people, along with some people at Homeland Security. Now, if you don't know, Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida. Greg Abbott is the governor of Texas. And Florida and Texas, there are border states that migrants in Texas, of course, they can walk in legally or illegally. They can just cross over the Mexico U.S. border. And that has become a problem. In Florida, it's water around the state, and many other people from other countries, migrants, just swim in, they boat in, they come in, and it has overtaxed, it has overextended Florida and Texas and their resources. So I understand when those things happen. Funds that are helped to used for people to clothe them, house them, feed them, is being stretched to capacity in these states, and so many more. But it turns out that those two dudes, Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, they're using state funds earmarked for other state programs to transport those migrant workers to other states with no plan beyond dropping them off to be somebody else's problem. Now, migrant workers have been showing up in New York, in Washington, D.C., even at Vice President Kamala Harris's house. They dropped them off in front of her house. And the latest group of migrant families were flown to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Now, residents in that area, we know they're wealthy, some of the wealthiest people in the United States. So having the resources to help people in need is not my concern, because we know that they can do it. But the least that the governors could have done was to contact residents there in Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts to let them know that they were dropping people off without a plan. Or maybe that was the plan. Here's why I'm saying that. I'm going to show you this 2-minute video, and then we're going to come back and talk about it. And I'm showing you this video under the Copyright Act of 1976, which says that I can show you information in this place, in this instance of video, for the critiquing and the discussion. And in fact, if you want to discuss anything, if you want to comment I'm going to put the link in the chat. You can come on live with me, or you can just use your fingers in chat. But take a look at this video. We're going to look at 2 minutes of it.
They were provided with a cartoonishly simple map of Martha's Vineyard and the United States and a brief brochure containing snippets from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts website and instructions to change their address with USCIS when they relocated. This is especially troubling as anyone with even the most basic understanding of the immigration proceedings knows that USCIS was not the agency with whom the migrants would have to record their addresses and has nothing to do with their cases in any way. It is clear that this was an intentional attempt to ensure that these migrants were removed in absentia when they failed to change their address with the proper agency. This was a purposeful derailment designed to prevent people from complying with federal immigration policies. This is problematic because the state should not be interfering with federal immigration policy. Before they boarded the planes, the migrants were processed by agents of the Department of Homeland Security, who listed falsified addresses on the migrants' paperwork. Agents apparently chose random homeless shelters all across the country, from Washington to Florida, to list the migrants' mailing addresses, even when told by the migrants that they had no address in the U.S. According to the paperwork provided to them, the migrants are required to check in with ICE office nearest to the fake address chosen for them by DHS or be permanently removed from the United States, with some required to check in as early as this coming Monday. It could not be clearer that this is an attempt to ensure that these people are ordered removed, even as they try as hard as they can to comply with the instructions provided to them. There is no other reason to list as someone's mailing address a homeless shelter in Tacoma, Washington, when they ship him to Massachusetts.
So I just wanted you to see a snippet of that. And here is why I'm bringing this up. Here's why I'm even talking about this. Here's my point. During the 1950s and the 1960s, during the civil rights movement, many civil rights workers would travel to the southern United States on buses to help people register to vote and to protest segregation in public places like restaurants and retail stores and public schools. And they would boycott and hold sit-ins and marches to bring attention to the issues and the inequities. So that's when some organizations such as the White Citizens Council, look it up, White Citizens Council, formed in 1954 after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down racial segregation in public schools, Brown versus the Board of Education, remember that? Within a year, the White Citizens Council had 60,000 members across the South. Membership stretched across 30 states by 1957. And so in the South, the southern part of the United States only has about 8 states, okay? So if they had members across 30 states, that means there were people in other parts in the West, North, East, South, Midwest who also were against integration. They wanted to stay separate, but what they called equal, okay? So membership in the White Citizens Council reached 250,000 members by 1957. Members were business people. They were religious leaders. They were civic leaders in their communities. They were known, the White Citizens Council, they were known as the Uptown KKK, the Uptown Ku Klux Klan, okay? Because they felt like the Klan is more militant and we are less militant, we're more civil, even though they wanted the same, they subscribe to the same ideology in that African Americans are not equal to us, and we don't want to go to school with them, and we don't want to eat with them, and we don't want to share the same water fountain. they still had the same idea. Okay, they were just hiding behind civility. And when here's what these people did, people who were in the White Citizens Council and other organizations like it, when they found out that you too were that you had a different idea about integration, that you want integration, and you were helping African Americans and you lived in their community, they would blackball you. They would, if you were a black person, they would find a way to fire you from your job. They would evict you from your home. They would do all kinds of underhanded things to keep you from progressing and to punish you and coerce you into doing what they wanted you to do. So that's what members of the White Citizens Council did to punish people who were for integration. Now, one of the things they did was they would pretend to contact black families and say, hey, I'm from the North, I'm from New York City, and we've got jobs up here, and we want to offer you a job. We want you to pack your family and come on up, sight unseen. We got housing for you, a job for you, and we want to set you up. And then these black people would be like, oh, well, it probably is so much better. I'm going to get paid so much more money. And do you know what they did? They would pack up, and the pretend people would say, we're going to give you a bus ticket. We're going to give you transportation out here. So go on to the bus station and get your bus ticket. And it would, of course, be a one-way ticket to where? To the middle of New York City, and where you would get there and there would be nobody there to greet you. There would be nobody there to give you a job. There would be nobody there to give you housing. And essentially, you would become somebody else's problem. This is the same conniving and selfish and self-serving, underhanded things that they're doing to these migrant families that they did to African Americans, black people in America during the civil rights movement. So it's nothing new about what they're doing to these migrant families. It's a different day. It's a different, it's the same, it's a different day on the calendar, basically. You know, same old tactic, different day, basically. We are dealing with the descendants of some spiteful ass people who still think that they should be in control of everything. They still think that everybody else should do all the work and they should get all the benefit. And so that is why we need to be aware of our history, because history is repeating itself, not just on us, but it's repeating itself in the form of some people feel the same way about these migrant families. And speaking of a calendar, this is one of the, I'm known for posting things on my social media about issues that happen, racial injustices that happen in Black history. And I get it from these calendars that I purchase every year from the Equal Justice Initiative that's in Mobile, Alabama. Now, you might not be familiar with Equal Justice Initiative, or you probably are more familiar with Bryan Stevenson. Bryan Stevenson is the attorney who moved from Connecticut, I think it was, to live in Alabama to help represent Black people, mostly Black people, who were unjustly imprisoned, unjustly convicted of things that they didn't do and were serving life sentences, and some of them getting a death penalty when there was plenty of evidence that they were being railroaded. And he has spent the last 35, 40 years of his life in Alabama trying to right these wrongs. And you might have seen the movie Just Mercy, where Jamie Foxx was in it. Michael B. Jordan played Bryan Stevenson. And yeah, Brian Stevenson. And he also created what's called the Lynching Museum. And you should actually go to that museum if you ever find yourself wanting to get more history or want to teach your children more history. You should take a trip to Mobile, Alabama. No, actually, it's Montgomery, Alabama. The Lynching Museum is what is known as, but it's also called the Equal Justice Museum. And essentially, they have every known lynching of a black person since the 1800s. They have a what's the word? Transcribed. I don't know if that's the word. They have them etched. Let's just say etched into iron on these iron boards, every state across the country. So mostly it's in the Southeast. And so just to bring attention to let you know the tens of thousands of people who lost their lives because people like Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott and these people who work with Homeland Security who know good and dang on well these people, you're shipping them over here to the left. Ain't no way they're going to be able to get over here all the way to the right by Monday. Okay? They're trying to make them become illegal and so that they can legally ship them out. It reminds me of people who they put on parole and they put you under these stringent guidelines. Meek Mill, the rapper Meek Mill out of Philadelphia, that's kind of what his case was about. I don't know if you ever saw that documentary that essentially that he was railroaded. He never shot at the cops. But they gave him jail time, and then they gave him parole, and of course he wasn't able to cross state lines. Now, if you live in or you know about Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, you can cross from Pennsylvania into Delaware, going to work, going to school, going to a party. His daughter lived in or went to school in one area that was out of the area where he was supposed to go. He was forbidden to go there according to his parole guidelines, but he had to pick his daughter up. That was one of his responsibilities. It's kind of like living in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. You can go through Maryland, Virginia, and DC all day in those two different states in that district and still call yourself not leaving home. So the judge in Meek Mill's case, held him responsible for crossing over to go get his daughter and put him in. It was just a mess. So I'm bringing it back around. There are people in these United States, in this world, who still think that some people are inferior to them. They still think that they are superior to certain people, and they're going to do whatever they can to make you run afoul of the law. And that's exactly what they're doing by sending people all the way to Martha's Vineyard, but putting their address as all the way in San Antonio, knowing good and dang on well those people are not going to be able to get there for your hearing because you got to be there, because if you're not there, then your case is dismissed and you need to officially go back to wherever. So whatever you think about immigration or illegals coming in, or whether they are not illegal, or whether they're migrants or they're asylum seekers, however you feel about that, tricking people and lying to people and telling them one thing that they're on their way to get a job in some housing, when you know that you're just pushing them up the road, kicking the can up the road, making it somebody else's problem. That is unethical, and that's untrustworthy. And if you're in a position where you're making political decisions, it seems to me that you're probably excuse me, you're probably making decisions that you feel are going to benefit you politically. And we need to, what is it? Sorry. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to stay abreast of the issues, because people are making decisions with our tax dollars that we are, if we're turning a blind eye to it because we're so overwhelmed with our own problems. But this is your problem. They're making it your problem. They're using your money to do what they're doing. So that's all I really want to say, except that you need to ask questions. And if you want to know more about what I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. It's at eurweb.com. Thanks, and have a